On today's Chiefs Report by Chat Sports, we have the perfect draft plan for Brett Veach and the Kansas City Chiefs, as we are less than 3 weeks away from those bells ringing and Roger Goodell stepping on the stage. We appreciate you hanging out with us here on the Chiefs Report. I am your host, Jace Andrews. Let's first go through the draft picks that the Chiefs currently hold. They have their own rounds 1 through 4 picks, and then they have the round 5 pick via Dallas, the compensatory pick in round 5, Tennessee's round 7 pick in that round 7 swap in the L'Jarius Sneed trade. And so they have 7 total picks as we stand right now. Obviously, that could change in the next couple weeks or even on draft night. Now, the Chiefs team needs, although very thin, they do have two positions that I would say are very, very much needed. Those two being wide receiver and left tackle. I think especially given the Rashee Rice incident that we're having to deal with right now, there's a potential that those wide receiver room could get even thinner. And so I feel as though you have to be worried about that position. That honestly makes that jump to the top to me over left tackle. Now, left tackle is still very important. Wanya Morris is the current starter out of, obviously, Donovan Smith was the left tackle last year, was overall pretty solid. I'm not going to say he was anything great, but I think he was just going to cost too much. And now, do they trust Wanya Morris, a 6th-round pick out of Oklahoma, or do they go and try and get somebody in, say, the 2nd round here, maybe even the 1st round for Brett Veach? And then, obviously, cornerback to get some depth there, and running back still kind of teetering on there with Clyde Edwards-Helaire resigning, but still kind of a question mark in the back part of the running back room. All right, make sure you're subscribed because we have the latest Kansas City Chiefs draft rumors, draft news, pretty much anything you want, we got it covered. We got you covered. We are Kansas City Chiefs Draft Central. And if you're not subscribed, well, you're doing yourself a disservice because we have informative content about the Kansas City Chiefs as we head into draft season. Right down there, you see it flashing, youtube.com/ChiefsTV, or hit that little red subscribe button on your screen. Let's start here with the first of 5 steps in my perfect draft plan, and that is to trade up in round 1 for a wide receiver or left tackle. Obviously, those are the top 2 needs. I mean, we have talked about that multiple times throughout the past couple weeks, and nothing's changed. The only thing that I see could have changed is obviously potential of Rashee Rice being suspended, which causes this wide receiver room to look a lot different. You have Rashee Rice right there at wide receiver 1, but there's a potential for a suspension incoming. Marquise Brown at wide receiver 2. Right now, you're really thinking that's a great thing right now to have. But then past that, I don't trust Kadarius Toney. I don't trust Sky Moore. Justin Watson's great. Justin Ross has been talked about for a long time, but everybody else is a practice squad guy. Nico Remahio could potentially jump onto the roster. I know people were excited about him last year before he got injured. But if you're looking at this without Rashee Rice, it's just Marquise Brown. And I don't want to go into a 2024 season in which you're looking to three-peat for the first time ever in Super Bowl history and think, okay, we have one receiver, and if he gets hurt, I don't know what we're going to do. So that's why I would trade up and try and take a wide receiver. Now, the trade-up aspect would probably be adequate for the top 2 you see on the list. Brian Thomas Jr. and Adonai Mitchell. Both of them, I think, are going to need to be traded up for. I think the Chiefs are in too far down of a spot to get either of those guys. BTJ is certainly a very good option. I like what he brings to the table, and I think he kind of fits what Rashee Rice would theoretically do for the team. So I think if Rashee is suspended, you go him, try and trade up a little higher. If not, if it's just, 6 games, whatever, I think you get AD. He's overall, to me, the best wide receiver from a core in this draft besides the top 3 in Marvin Harrison Jr., Malik Neighbors, and Rome Odunze. If you don't trade down, Ladd McConkey, Keon Coleman, Troy Franklin are all great. I think those guys could definitely fit that. But again, I truly do feel like you need to trade up to try and get AD or Brian Thomas Jr. It's a sucky situation, but unfortunately, you have to plan for the worst-case scenario right now. In the worst-case scenario, you don't have Rashee Rice next year. And so you draft a wide receiver that you can have in that role. And I think if you have A.D. Mitchell or Brian Thomas Jr. and Marquise Brown, this wide receiver room is just as good as it was last year. Well, that's already better than last year, but it'd be probably just as good if Rashee Rice was there or not. The thing is, the left tackle is obviously a position of need too. I've talked about Wanya Morris, and I know that they're pretty high on him internally. However, do you trust a 6th rounder on a great offensive line to protect the best quarterback in the National Football League. I don't know about that. If you trade up, there's a couple options that could slip into, say, picks 18, 19, 20, maybe into the 20 range. Those tackles being Olu Fashanu, Jace Andrews, Taliese Fuaga, and Olu Fashanu. Fuaga is one that the Chiefs talked to at the NFL Combine. To my knowledge, they did not talk to Latham, Fashanu, or Fashanu. Fuaga, man, a lot of F names, I'm just realizing there. But Fuaga is one that I really, really like. I think he's one that could potentially drop to where the Chiefs could trade up just 8-9 picks to get him. And it would be one that would be really serviceable. I think it would honestly be better than Wanya Morris. Now, the good news is this is a very good offensive tackle and a very good wide receiver draft class. And that's the two needs that the Chiefs have. Obviously, you can't fill both in the first round unless you trade for 2 first-round picks, which, knowing the way the NFL views, the NFL and the entire league, the other teams view the Chiefs, they're not going to let you trade into the first round and have 2 first-round draft picks a year after completing back-to-back Super Bowl champions. That's just not going to happen. However, you can make sure that you get one of these in the first and one of these guys in the second round. But who do you get in the first round is the question. I ask you that same one. Who's your first round choice? Is it a wide receiver? Then I want you to type WR. If it's a left tackle, you think that's more important, Rashee Rice or not, then type LT. WR for wide receiver, LT for left tackle. Which is the more important guy to get in the first round? Second part of my perfect draft plan is to get a defensive lineman in round 3. Now, obviously, we know that this defensive line is going to be fine. You have Chris Jones, you have George Karlaftis, Felix Ndubuike-Uzomah, a former first-round pick from last year. He's going to fit in well. That's why I tend to lean more towards defensive tackle rather than edge, because I just mentioned 3 names. Problem is you have 4 on a defensive line. 2 of the names I mentioned were edge. You have Mike Dana back, or not yet, but you in theory will get him back soon enough. And then Derek Nottie in the defensive interior is great, but do you really trust all these guys to go in there and be healthy every single day? I think you should just go and work one out. Obviously, there's a couple of big names that we've talked about on this show multiple times before, and it's one that I could really see working out in a really good facet for the Chiefs. Defensive line is I'd say an upper tier position in this NFL draft, especially in the interior. And there's a couple of guys that I have my eye on. I'm going to tell you who those guys are in just a second. Before that, make sure you're getting your tickets from Game Time. It's the fast and easy way to get your tickets to any type of event in your area. You're wanting to watch sports, comedy, theater, anything you want. Guess what? Game Time has it covered. The Royals, they're hosting the Astros in Kauffman Stadium this week. Games start this Tuesday, so go check it out. Again, you can get $20 off your first purchase by using code CHATSPORTS. So that's basically a free ticket for 2 or 3 people in a good section. You can spend the other money on some hot dogs, some drinks, have a nice day at the ballpark. It's a good time to be watching some baseball. And the Royals honestly look pretty decent. Bobby Witt Jr., maybe one of the better players in all of Major League Baseball. Once again, go to the redeem code section. That's where you can put in that code CHATSPORTS to get $20 off your first purchase. Game Time's your place for last-minute ticket deals, flash deals, zone deals. Man, they've got everything when it comes to getting tickets, especially last-minute deals. I tell you, I'm not a guy who likes to plan a lot, and Game Time is perfect because they not only have deals on tickets right up to the start of the event, but even an hour and a half after it starts, you can get tickets. It's your one place to find last-minute seats. Plus, you can find exclusive flash deals and amazing, amazing zone deals. You can save on average 18%. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CHATSPORTS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CHATSPORTS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guarantee. Here's my top 3 guys in the defensive interior that you could easily get on day 3. Michael Hall Jr. is the first one. Bigger guy. He reminds me in some way of a young Chris Jones. I know that's hard to compare, but his body type, his outline, it kind of matches up with that. And given that he get to learn from CJ, might be nice. Dwayne Carter's one that I mentioned actually a couple of times on the show before. Obviously, with Derek Nottie re-signing, I feel like you can get a guy in day 3 and be just fine. he play a backup role. Leonard Taylor's also one I've mentioned one other time on this show. He's more of a smaller defensive interior lineman. That's why I'm more leaning toward Dwayne or Michael Hall. But there is one guy that I really did like at the NFL Combine. It was Braden Fisk. The problem is he's not expected to get to round 3. And so Brett Veach has a decision to make. If he liked him, well then in day 2, do you take an offensive tackle or a wide receiver, whichever one you didn't take in round 1, or do you take a Braden Fisk? Well, that's going to be the decision he'll have to make. The third part of my perfect draft plan is to find a late round running back. Now, the running back position was helped out this week by the re-signing of Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and you now have 2 really serviceable running backs. I think Pacheco is obviously the main bell cow back. You're going to see him pretty much every down at this point. Clyde Edwards-Helaire would be what, in theory, a third down back is unless you get somebody else. But the thing is, the Chiefs talked with multiple running backs at the Combine, and I know there was the report about J.K. Dobbins earlier this week and the potential of signing him. Obviously, Nate Taylor of The Athletic said that it was a cooperative meeting. Both sides gained something out of it. But given a signing wasn't made, I have to feel like the Chiefs have their eye on someone. Now, who is that someone? Well, here's the 3 guys that they showed interest in at the NFL Combine. Bucky Irving, the running back from Oregon, really liked him, talked to him a couple times. Braylon Allen is one that has been linked to the Chiefs a pretty decent amount. And then Dylan Johnson, more of a later round pick. Bucky and Braylon probably going to have to get maybe in the fourth or third, whereas Dylan Johnson could probably get in maybe the 6th round if he falls that way. Obviously, coming off an injury in the playoff game, did play in the national championship game, but you could obviously tell was not 100%. They have their eye on somebody, and I think that's what we know for sure, because they would have just signed J.K. Dobbins if there wasn't somebody in the NFL draft that they liked. Plus, that meeting was good on both sides, and that was reported after the fact once Clyde Edwards-Helaire re-signed. There's somebody that they have in there, and I just don't know who it is, so I asked the question, would you like them to draft a running back or pass on them and potentially get J.K. Dobbins? Let me know in the comment section down below. You want them to draft somebody? Type D for draft. You want them to pass. You want to say, hey, we don't need it. We will get somebody else. We're fine with Pacheco, Clyde, and hopefully J.K. Dobbins. We'll then type P for pass, D for draft, P for pass. Let's go to number 4 on my perfect draft plan, and that is to address the cornerback room. And I say address because I think they're fine as it is. It's not a major need to me. Yes, I know L'Jarius Sneed provided a much-needed support at cornerback last year and was arguably one of the better, if not the best, cornerbacks in all of the National Football League in 2023. However, Trent McDuffie was also one of, if not the best, cornerback in the National Football League. And he's your cornerback 1. They've talked very highly of Joshua Williams and Jalen Watson. Echo Boydo, a guy who was a UDFA last year, ended up making the roster at the latter part of the season, also really liked by a lot of these guys, a Kansas State guy, so that obviously helps. Kelvin Joseph, I want to talk about him real quick because he is somebody that I think has kind of gone under the radar. Everybody's talking about how well Brett Veach is able to scout cornerbacks. Well, Joseph was a former 2nd-round pick, had some, let's say, problems outside of football, but he has really fit in well with a lot of different ways in the cornerback room in terms of practices and just being around the organization in the short time he has had. So I think that's an underrated aspect, and that's why I say address it, because maybe you get one in the very late round. I like Jarius Monroe in the round 7 pick. He's one that I really caught my eye on in Tulane. But again, I think you need to get somebody just to make sure that quarterback room is filled out to its full potential. And then my 5th and final perfect draft plan, get another wide receiver, because it's, again, unfortunately, you have to think about the Rashee Rice situation. That's just the position that we are put in right now. And with that, I mentioned it, I've shown it to you. That wide receiver room becomes very, very thin if Rice is suspended for a portion of the season, if not even all of the season this year. And so you have to address this room not just once, but potentially twice. And I'm not saying you need to draft wide receivers in round 1 and 4, or round 1 and 3, round 1 and 5, round 2 and 5. I mean, you just get somebody else like a Luke McCaffrey. I mean, this is a very good wide receiver draft. Just have somebody in the wings that you trust. And obviously, we know Brett Veach is a very good scouting GM. I trust that he makes the right decisions. And, well, he's going to have some tough ones coming up. And so we'll have to see what he will do. We appreciate y'all watching. As always, we're going to keep the draft coverage coming, so hit that subscribe button right down there, youtube.com/ChiefsTV. That's all we got for you today. For now, peace out.